Good evening, everyone. Welcome to the February 21st, 2023 meeting of the Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council's Port, Environment, and Sustainability Committee. We've had our agenda posted online and publicly. Congratulations for those who found us here on the webinar on the web link. I hope no one had any trouble. This may be our last Zoom meeting. I'm not sure. We may be going back to in person next month. But that's just kind of the welcome call to order. When prompted, if there are any students here, raise your hand now. It's part of a process. Students often attend for credit. And now we will begin with the general public comments for anything not on the agenda. So this is item number 2, general public comments and non-agenda items. Is there anyone from the public that'd like to be recognized to speak? Okay, Gwen.
Well, as many of you know, there was a volunteer effort on Monday over at Peck Park, very well attended. I unfortunately had COVID, so I didn't want to participate, get anybody potentially infected. But the volunteer efforts will be ongoing. Every third Wednesday, is that correct, Pat? From this point forward, there's other volunteer days, but that one was a very well attended event, and there were about 100 plants that were planted on the hillside. Restoration is going at a great clip, and there's a lot of activities there. Now. This is outside of this is a second discussion. So Wildfest and Public Safety were not able to get a spring event going in time. The timing was just off. But April 8th, Peck Park will be having an April 8th extravaganza, and the Kiwanis Literacy Club will be participating in that, and a few other organizations, and hopefully some of the volunteer efforts over at Peck Park will also be attending. I'm trying to get some of the pop-ups for that, and so that will be a good place to sign up for volunteering and find out more about some of the activities, including pickleball, which is turning out to be very popular. I see that Tim McCosker also attended that. And there's a lot of great things. And there's also nature hikes that are happening as well. And I'll be getting an announcement out there for that as well.
So for the recording, I don't know that I heard the time or the date of the next event. So every other Wednesday morning, I understand that you're doing something in Peck Park, you're replanting. Do you know if what time they start, and if it's going to be next Wednesday, or if it's going to be tomorrow?
Every third Wednesday. I believe that tomorrow there will be.
Diana, come here a minute, real quick.
Oh, go ahead, Gwen.
Here, real quick.
Yeah, that would be great. Let me get that for you. If you want to come back to me,
okay,
I'll get those plans.
Planting.
So the plantings at Peck Park?
Yeah.
Yesterday.
No, when are the future ones?
Well, I don't know. We don't have
What's
any
the
future
next
ones.
nature walk? Is the next nature walk tomorrow?
The next nature walk is Saturday.
Saturday, right?
okay, all right. This
The
comes up.
planting, we planted 180 plants.
Oh, it was 180. I thought it was 100. Great. Yeah, I'm sorry I couldn't make it. I didn't want to get anybody potentially infected still.
Oh, no.
You know, with the COVID
Oh.
thing. Yeah, that's why I didn't show up.
Okay.
I was really looking
Well,
forward
the
to
next walk,
it.
if
Very
it's
well.
not raining. If it's not raining.
If it's not raining, that's correct. Yes, a nature walk this Saturday. They start right behind the community center. There's a trail head right there, and I
Yes.
believe it starts at 10 o'clock. Is that correct?
No, it's at 9 o'clock.
9 o'clock. 9 o'clock.
At 9 o'clock. Thank you. Thank you for those details. Thank you for the update, and thank you, Diana. For non-agendized up, so we got Mike Galvin here. I'll just share an event that was environmental sustainability related. The UCLA Rotaract Club and the Cal State Dominguez Hills Rotaract Club sponsored events on the 8-year anniversary of the near miss at the Torrance Refinery. So there were groups. Maxine Waters spoke for 10 minutes. Nanette Barragon was there in person and spoke for 10 minutes about the safety and the having some of the refineries like the one in Torrance consider using a safer chemical in their production process. If you remember, last week was also a week with that derailment of chemicals in Ohio, right? So I thought it was really nice to see that community talk about an event that could affect San Pedro. There are some, estimates that if that hydrofluoric gas, did get out, it certainly would come close to San Pedro, and it would probably make it hard to get out of San Pedro on the 110. So something I just wanted to share that went well as a small group, but some great officials from the Obama administration, the 2 representatives that I mentioned, kind of speaking and talking about an issue that I thought was of interest. So, and that's why some of you were copied, just as an FYI to let you know that was going on. Gwen, you got your hand back up, or was that from before? Oh, you're muted now.
I just pulled that down. Thank you.
Right. Okay. Any other comments? Otherwise, we'll move on. There were no action items from the previous meeting, but thank you for this committee for our work. It did get amended a bit at the full neighborhood council, but we do have the letter that we worked on did get approved for anyone who wasn't there. And so I'm grateful to each of you for the contributions you made towards that. Now's the point where we'll do comments and suggestions from stakeholders and committee members. I want to acknowledge Mike Galvin, I see is here, and he is the next on the list, number 5, just so he knows he probably won't be waiting too long. But if we have any comments from the stakeholders and committee members, now that we've heard from the public, this is a great time to raise your hand to be recognized and add your comments to our public record. Okay, and I can broaden it to anyone if Cole or anyone wanted to speak. Otherwise, I'll just keep going down the agenda. I know it is Mardi Gras, so I'm not going to labor anything. All right, well, it's my great pleasure. I'm very grateful that, at this committee's request, did reach out to Augie and members of the port to try to get some port representatives to meet with this committee. We're trying to attract more folks, have this a committee where we get to learn about the port, learn about environment and sustainability, and we get to speak to folks in the port about our concerns. What he was invited to talk about that's on the agenda will be just an update of Port of Los Angeles projects for this group. And I did wish we had a bit more. I thought this was going to be a draw. Some of our regular attendees aren't here this evening. Mike, maybe, hopefully they'll pop in. Also discussion just the connectivity plans, things like sidewalks and bike paths in particular, how they affect Northwest San Pedro has been a concern that I've heard members of this committee raise. And then, just a discussion of the PAIP process, what's going on as that's kind of being reevaluated, some of the things for the next decade. So those were 3 things he had a little advance notice on. Of course, the public, I'm not going to censor anyone or folks that the things on their mind. Mr. Galvin here, but I at least wanted to appreciate Mike taking the time to come here and interact with us. So I'd love to turn it over to you, Mike, if you're ready. Want you get your hand up, Mike? Are you able to? You need to be promoted, maybe? Let me see here. Let's go to.
He might need to be a co-host if he's going to put something up on the screen.
All right.
There we can see him. All right.
Okay, I was gonna present, so it looks like I can share my screen.
You can or can't?
I can. I'm just gonna get
Awesome.
Put my background on too. Okay. Well, thank you for having me tonight. I'm going to present on the LA waterfront update. So I presented this to, I believe, the Joint Neighborhood Council Planning committees, and was going to share it with this group as well, just so we can have similar information out there. see. Okay, can everybody see that?
Yep.
Mhm.
Yes.
Are you guys, oh, one second. Okay, that's better, I think. Okay, so what's going on the waterfront? Well, there's quite a bit, namely the two big projects that we have in construction right now, I can finally say, is West Harbor and Alta Sea. Starting off with West Harbor, we will be in construction here soon on the phase 2 of the promenade, which is going to fill in the areas of promenade that are where the existing restaurants are today, and at the end where the Yankovic fueling station was. And so that's a project that bids are coming in middle of March and expected to start construction in June. And that is, like I said, to fill in the remainder of what will be almost a 1 mile long promenade going from the existing ferry building all the way up to the point where Yankovic was. And that will be done in conjunction with the developers' land roundup improvements, I should say, that are including 2 initial phases, phase 1A and 1B, which I'll go into a little bit more detail on. But just a site map, as you can see here, promenade that still needs to be built is going from about this bend right here, where it's built to today on the north side, down through where the restaurants are and through the mudflat area right here where we see an indentation in the promenade. And then it will continue to pick up at the end, which is close to where the proposed amphitheater is. And the end here, it's going to be a little more interesting because the promenade will actually be built mainly over water in that location, where most of it right now is built on the land with the water adjacent. This portion will be cantilevered over water in this end section right here down by the old Yankovic fuel dock. So on top of that, the developer has started to move dirt and asphalt around in this area right here. So if you went into the site today, you would see a construction fence that's up from about right here all the way into this southern triangle, we'll call it, and where they have started their construction and preparation for this building, which is the phase 1A building. They plan on also building out phase 1B. Simultaneously, these 2 buildings are leased up about 70% in total, with phase 1A with a little higher occupancy than phase 1B right now. And then phase 1C is a third building or series of buildings that has yet to be leased and isn't in the current plans to build out initially. But there are areas of North Park that will be built out. Somebody mentioned pickleball earlier. There's a tenant there that they're looking at called Pig and Pickle, which is food and beverage plus pickleball court. So these uses in North Park are larger type of open space uses that have associated food and beverage with them. There's another tenant there called Bark Social, which is basically a dog park that has food and beverage attached to it. So should be a lot of interesting uses out there. And this is just a rundown of the square footages of what has leased already. So building 1A, that first building that I mentioned, Mike Hess Brewery, which is typical brewery, food and beverage operation. Hopscotch, which is entertainment, ticketed sales location that will deal with different types of art engagements. And we'll have both indoor and outdoor food and beverage as well. King and Queen, which I believe name has changed to something different, but it is a new Mexican restaurant that will go there. And I think that square footage has gone up as well. Poppy and Rose, Jaybird, and Olala Crepes, those are a few of the total there. And then Sugar Factory and Yamashiro in the second phase. Just a bunch of different renderings and logos for those entities that will be out there. That's looking at the Mike Hess Brewing Company building there that'll be on the southernmost side of the development. Yamashiro's, Sugar Factory. This is the North Park area where you can see larger format outdoor type uses there. Looking at that from a different angle, looking towards the north. Then getting into Alta Sea, which is our next big development on the LA waterfront that is also under construction now. And Alta Sea is a commercial and educational institutional facility that is focused on ocean industries that are beginning to rise up. as we begin to understand more and more about the ocean. So some of the focus points there are aquaculture. It's a big part of the current tenancy, ocean exploration, generating power out of the ocean, both through wind and wave action, and other related industries that will be popping up there, including an educational piece that'll be focused on marine biology. So Alta Sea is currently building out 180,000 square feet of warehouse space. This is looking down that wharf and turning it into a very active location with the expectation of this work being done sometime in 2024. But the electrical substructures have already started to go in for this. They've put on a new roof in the last 6 months and are building out the solar system on top of the building as well. There's various other improvements that have taken place inside the building, including making the structural steel ready for adaptive reuse of the insides of the building. And like I said, we expect that to start construction April, be done in 2024. So this is really the implementation of the long-term vision and plan for Alta Sea to become a jobs engine in the Port of Los Angeles. Just some renderings of what the inside looks like there. I think several people have probably seen some of this before, but finally turning dirt out there. If you go down there, you will see an active construction zone. At Alta Sea, they just had a very interesting event focused on launching their Hydrogen Education Center, which is a new piece of industry that Alta Sea is focused on, with their new CEO, Terry Tamnen, having a lot to do at the state level with launching the hydrogen highway for passenger cars in California over the last 20 years. When he worked as cabinet secretary under Governor Schwarzenegger. So lots going on at Alta Sea, finally seeing dirt turn, and we're very excited about that. Cabrillo Way Marina is the next development that we'll be working on negotiating a lease for. We have a negotiated term sheet here for a developer with the plan to build out 2 different hotels on the site, a marina club and various retail, as well as them taking over operations of the marina itself. These are some renderings of what the facility will look like. So one of the hotels will be actually located on the north side of 22nd Street. So this is part of the development over here, this corner lot here that is vacant right now, 22nd Street and Dave Arian Way right here. And then on the other side, you'll have another larger hotel built here, along with several retail, dining, entertainment type facilities, including a marina club that is in this area right here. Marina Club serves as an amenity to all the boaters that have slips in the marina, somewhere they can go and have food and beverage, as well as open to the public. And then you can see the different hotel facilities there right on the promenade that exists today. So just a couple different renderings. We're hoping to close this lease transaction and purchase for the marina this year and be ready for them to take over operations in 2024. This same developer is joint venturing on that property, Bellwether Financial Group, with R.D. Olson, who's a well-known hotel developer in Southern California. But the Bellwether piece of that joint venture is also developing the boatyard here, which is a critical amenity that's necessary for continued consistency in operations of our maritime industry. We currently only have 1 functioning boatyard of any scale in the San Pedro Bay. That's Al Larson. This would provide a second one, can handle 99% of the recreational boats that are registered in California, and as well as many commercial vessels. And so this will be a big opportunity to bring some business back to Southern California that has had to go other places for a number of years, and it continues to amenitize the waterfront, drawing in more from the water side that will activate the land side as well. So working on the overall ecosystem here to draw in visitors from all angles possible. In Wilmington, quite a bit going on as far as building the skeleton of the waterfront there. We've built the Wilmington Waterfront Park already. That's an existing park. It's been up in operations for over 10 years. We're in the process of finishing construction on the Wilmington Waterfront Promenade. That's an over $70 million total project cost that's going to create, I believe, about 14 acres of new open space there in Wilmington, including an entertainment park that's 4 acres elevated above the water's edge to promote different types of events. This is all built adjacent to the existing Bannings Landing Community Center. I think we'll really leverage that community center into something that it's always been capable of doing, but lacking the open space and amenities next door to make it really all that it can be. And the second project is the Avalon Pedestrian Bridge project, which will connect the existing a waterfront promenade into the Avalon corridor. And the first stage of that is building the bridge. Second stage will be to connect the bridge to Avalon and Harry Bridges and really unlock the value of the Wilmington waterfront by connecting it to its historic commercial corridor on Avalon, and looking for opportunities for private investment in between Avalon and C Street on port property that we own today. This was all made possible by a property swap between us and the LADWP that we're continuing to work through the details of. Some of the renderings here, this is the Wilmington Waterfront Park. This will be done sometime this summer. So we're looking forward to that. And this was made possible by removal of this tank right here by the LADWP, and the bridge will then go through that tank. This is a picture from some time ago now, over a year ago. We need to update some of these to show the actual progress that we have to date. But you can see the beginning of the berm that's built up to take the bridge over the railway. That's the bridge that will be the next phase of the project. The bridge location where the tank used to be and is no longer. Other development opportunities that we have on the LA waterfront include warehouse number 1. That should be going out hopefully second quarter of, this is wrong. It should be 2023. I'm sorry, my slide is, oops. My slide is incorrect there. April 2023, we should have an RFI going out for that project. Outer Harbor Cruise Terminal, we have an RFP draft out for comment, both from industry and the community. And that is intended to build out the berth 46 to 52 area into a new cruise terminal with the capacity for 2 large berths, and also to redevelop the existing terminal to upgrade the berths that we have there. And then Wilmington Marinas, we're looking in to redeveloping those as well. Those marinas date 80 plus years in age, and it's time for larger scale redevelopment there as the tenancies come to an expiration in 2025. We want to look to see how we're going to take the marinas into the next 50 plus years, and significant improvements will be necessary to make that happen. So we have a consultant looking at that right now, looking at different alternative pathways to a successful development there. So that is all I have on waterfront development. Obviously, all of this is necessary to continue to activate the water, but without the waterfront, but without a plan to connect all these pieces, we could lose a lot of leverage from the investments that we've made today. So we have the connectivity plan that is currently being conducted by SWA. It's an architectural and landscaping architect firm here in Los Angeles that with locations all around the world, but that has experience in building out and doing master planning for large-scale waterfronts around the world. So we're focused on continuing to work with them, with the communities, to engage the community in various levels. We have a new meeting coming up this Thursday, actually. It's at the Boys and Girls Club, which is right next to the Harbor Administration Building at Liberty Hill Plaza. And that is going to be 6 to 8 o'clock in the evening. There'll be light refreshments served, and there'll be an opportunity to connect directly for the community at large, to connect directly with the SWA consultants as they go through their planning process. And so we're looking for input from the community and hoping for good engagement, even though it may be raining on Thursday night, hoping people still come out and give us input on how they use the waterfront today, how it works and doesn't work for them, and thinking about the future and how we're going to connect all of these new developments that are coming up with the existing amenities that we have. So very important to take input from those that live within San Pedro to understand how to connect the population in San Pedro down into the waterfront through various modes of transportation, including pedestrian, bike, vehicular, and then also looking at how the larger region is going to connect into the waterfront and making sure we're doing all we can there to make it a smooth transition. There will be more traffic, which is a good thing because that means there's more activity, but we want to manage that correctly, both from regional and local sides, making sure people can know where they're going, know where to park once during the day, and then be able to move around the waterfront easily from there throughout the day. So that is the plan there, but you can learn more about that on Thursday night at the Boys and Girls Club from 6 to 8. So we welcome anybody that is interested to come out. There's also going to be a pop-up next Thursday, first Thursday of March. So that'll be a pop-up. I think it will be in downtown San Pedro, and you should be seeing more on social media about that location coming up in the next week or so. So a lot going on in the LA waterfront, and all made possible by the Public Access Investment Plan, which takes 10% of the port's operating income on an annual basis, which is after we take our top line revenue, take away the operating expenses, we were left with operating income. Typically, currently it's around $25 million a year off of $250 million in operating income. And we plug that 10% into capital projects that are prioritized between the community, local elected offices, and the Port of Los Angeles to come up with a priority list of projects to move forward with and to really augment all the investment that we've already made in the waterfront. To date, under that plan from 2015, I think we've raised about $263 million, or that's the projection through 2025. It was a 10-year plan initially. We're planning on coming back to the board soon in the next month or so to look at making this plan more of a permanent structure of our annual budgetary process. So that will continue to provide benefits into the community, where the community sees success of the cargo business translate into direct success in community investment in public access, and also a process to engage the community with prioritizing projects that make sense to move forward at any given time on the waterfront. So that's about all I have. I think that covered all the topics that you had for me, Thomas, but I'm hoping to answer any questions that people have on those topics or other topics.
Thank you. I know it might have been a bit fast if it was new to you. A lot of this, I've seen, and some of us may have seen, but a lot of members of this committee have not. So I really appreciate it, Mike. The first thing I'd ask you to discuss on the last bit, the PAP, could you discuss what your sense the port's intention is in engaging with neighborhood councils in particular? I heard some public groups or folks, but I didn't hear neighborhood councils, so I know that will be a question, and then I'll recognize Gwen next with her question.
Yeah, we've always through the president's meeting that we have on a monthly basis and directly with neighborhood councils made that a focus point. So it's really been the local neighborhood councils and the chambers of commerce from both San Pedro and Wilmington, and anybody else that wanted to provide input. But we focused on doing direct outreach to those organizations specifically to make sure that they had an opportunity to provide input. And they did. We went through an input process in 2019, began it, and we're about to finalize it right before the pandemic hit. We put a pause on that, but I think we're going to pick that up right where we left off. We went through a very robust process, and we have a variety of good projects that have been prioritized by both of the communities that we will embark on moving forward with once we get the plan finalized. We're working with Council District 15 to finalize the fine details of the plan to make sure we're all in alignment.
Great, thank you. And for those who aren't aware in this committee, I have been serving on behalf of our president for most of those meetings. It's how I've gotten to know Mike, or heard from you the most. So we have had some representation, but I'm newer. I wasn't around in 2019. So thank you for that history. Gwen.
Thank you, Mike. Thank you for attending. So one thing that we were kind of discussing, well, for example, this is kind of a larger picture situation, but of course the pandemic showed a lot of weaknesses in movement of cargo, transport trucks, and the rest of it, which clearly has created a lot of rethinking of the infrastructure around the port. I'm certain that there are a lot of changes and things that continue to be brought in, and in order to enhance and modernize this port for the upcoming century. With that, are there any changes or things that might happen with the amenities of the port, the interaction with the community? Do some of those things get altered as well as some of the logistics have to be possibly rethought?
Well, I think that's why we're doing the connectivity plan, really, is to take a fresh look at that, Gwen. The look we took before was really focused on a plan that was hatched 2005, starting in that time frame, that resulted in the two community EIRs for the waterfronts in Wilmington and San Pedro in the 2009 time frame. And so we looked at it back then, and we've been operating, on that game plan since then. But really important to relook at everything, and that's exactly what we're doing with the connectivity plan, is understanding what has worked, what developments didn't happen, what developments did happen, what new developments came that weren't even contemplated then, and really figure out how do we reconnect this, plus a significant amount of development in downtown San Pedro with new residences going up in that area, and really trying to understand and taking this unique opportunity, once in a generational opportunity, to find some of these big projects like the One San Pedro project, where you have 20 acres that's directly adjacent to the waterfront. They can really serve as a corridor to the waterfront, and looking at that and other projects that are coming up throughout downtown San Pedro, and rethinking what we thought about on the waterfront many years ago, to make sure that it's aligning with those that are now living in those areas, and with the density of population we have in those areas. So definitely re-looking at all of that. And then also looking at the interplay between the cargo side of our operation, as well as the community or visitor serving side of our operation, and making sure that we're doing a good job to plan for both. And one of those examples is the SR 47 interchange that's going to go in. So when you exit into the harbor area on Harbor Boulevard, coming down into the waterfront, there's a bottleneck there, has been for several years. It's gotten worse with the cruise business that has ticked up about double since before COVID. And so you'll have certain days when if there's construction going on, plus a couple cruise ships in, and a lot of activity at the adjacent container terminal, that you can get stuck at that interchange for 10, 20 minutes sometimes. So this has been a thing that's been mounting over time, because you have two streams of business, the cargo business coming off of the Vincent Thomas Bridge, trying to get into a terminal, but the way that the interchange is situated is that the cargo business and the commercial visitor serving business has to cross paths. So we're going to separate that. It's over a $50 million project to redo that interchange completely, to make sure that both sides get what they need. The cargo business will go directly to the north of the bridge, and the visitor serving business that wants to go south on Harbor Boulevard will go to the south, and things will be separated much better and clean from a traffic perspective. And so those are adjustments that we have made to make sure that, in a port of this size, trying to manage these two very different pieces of business, that they all still work symbiotically. And I think that that's what makes the LA waterfront development so unique in Southern California and beyond, is the ability to come and enjoy yourself on the waterfront, on a working waterfront. It's not a beach, it's not just looking at a marina, it's an active shipping channel that is very unique in that. And so we want to make sure that everybody has the opportunity to get to where they want to get to and where they need to get to keep business going on both sides, and to really maximize our opportunity there for people to come down and see everything that goes on at the Port of LA.
And I assume that those factors are also including that there is still an ongoing plan to have more cruise ships on the outer harbor. That is correct?
That is correct.
So all of that has to be incorporated into this.
Yes, centralized parking areas and smart parking, right? So the people can come down and they're not confused about where to park, because they don't know where parking is available. When you go into typical malls now, you see level by level tells you what parking is available right at any given level. If you go to LAX and you park in short-term parking now, you prepay your parking and you know exactly where. I mean, they've gone down to, you know where the spaces are because they're lit green or red. And so getting to a level of smart parking as well. So when you exit the bridge, okay, the main cruise terminal parking may be completely booked at that point. So you got to go to a different location, but you need to be able to see that visually in a digital manner once you come to the waterfront. So that needs to be managed differently than it is today to make it all work. And so those are things that we're definitely looking at in relationship to the cruise business and other business that we're going to have here.
And rethinking even electric vehicles, charging stations.
There's a significant amount of charging stations that are being built around the San Pedro and Wilmington waterfront, but focus on San Pedro right now just because of the amount of activity we have there. But that is an ongoing project that you'll see benefits from the next couple of years.
I'm definitely going to make a point of being there on Thursday. Can you touch upon Wilmington? Of course, we're always trying to be supportive of Wilmington with their challenges with the trucking traffic and a lot of parking within the community and that kind of thing. Is there any rethinking of the movement of trucks and possibly stations where trucks can go and possibly get a meal? Is there a commercial entity that might be brought in? You know, all along the trucking corridors, there are places like rest stops that are very huge on trucking amenities. Is that a possibility somewhere within the industrial areas in and around the ports? Is that something that you might be aware of? It might be outside of the port's jurisdiction, but has there been any discussion about what to do with volumes of truckers?
They've looked at that on Terminal Island and in other areas and taken surveys and didn't find it to be a location on Terminal Island anyways, where people would stop and stay. It may be different when a big initiative at the port right now is going zero emissions, and that's both on our terminals and off our terminals with on-road trucks. And our goal is to get there on our terminals in 2030 and off our terminals with on-road drayage trucks by 2035. There may be a need to charge. There may be a need to get hydrogen fuel to be able to do that. So that may open up new opportunities that aren't currently being discussed. But basically, what was heard back from truckers is that they're trying to get in and out of the port as quickly as possible. And so it's not a place where they rest technically unless they're living there. And that's where you see trucks being parked in different areas. And so there are strict rules that are policed and regulated in the area of Wilmington. There's a task force that was put together by the former council office that is continuing to be fine-tuned by the new council office under Councilmember McCosker to really make sure that collectively with all the agencies and policing organizations in the area that we're doing our best to limit the burden on the Wilmington streets from trucking activity. So that's something that we're working on a daily basis, especially from a law enforcement perspective, to make sure that those issues are addressed and that trucks are on the streets that they're supposed to be and not on the streets they're not supposed to be, and especially not being parked in areas where they're not supposed to be. That's something that's part of the Clean Truck program, that drayage trucks that are registered are supposed to be parked not in residential areas, but in a place of business. So things that are policed, like I said, on a daily and hourly basis in the Port of LA, and definitely a focus point that we'll continue to deal with. Obviously, the issue goes away to some degree as cargo volumes go down, but it's just, it's a valley in a history of peaks and valleys, and eventually that cargo volume will go up again. And so we need to continue to fine tune the tools that we have to make sure that people in Wilmington that are living and working there have the best opportunity to do both without too much truck traffic where it's not supposed to be.
Thank you.
Thank you for taking the questions. All right, well, we want to be careful with this time, but I see we have Pat. Go ahead, Pat.
Yes, before I begin, Tom, do you know if the letter that the neighborhood council passed has been sent to the port?
I've not sent it directly, but I'm trying to work through our protocol to get the letter. Do you know, Mike, have you received one from Northwood Neighborhood Council? So you're familiar with the letter that was discussed at the beginning of this meeting?
I didn't hear the beginning of the meeting, so I'm not familiar with the letter, and I have not seen it.
Okay, so you will be soon, but yeah, we're not trying to hide it from you, but yeah, I don't know that it's got directly to the port, Pat.
Okay, thank you. Mark, I had a couple of questions. I'm assuming that the kind of open area behind the prospective cruise terminals down at Kaiser Point is going to be a parking area?
It will be parking, but not for passenger parking. It's just that site is really not big enough to accommodate parking for passengers. We're actually planning on looking at that closer to 22nd Street in the area of the old Gatex tank storage area there. That's partly developed now. So we're looking at developing significant parking there for passengers. That area out there is going to be for operational uses and for parking for employees that are working there mainly.
Do you expect to have the kind of the customs clearing thing? You've got that big temporary tent that's been there for 20 years up by the Iowa.
Mm-hmm.
You're going to put another one. You're going to put another one down at the new cruise terminal down at Kaiser Point. That
is not our goal. Our goal is to get a nice terminal built out there. That that facility was built in conjunction with an existing terminal that was built and almost outsized the minute it was built. And so we needed additional space to store luggage and to process, as you mentioned, for customs purposes. And so that's why it was built the way that it was built there, to not have a throwaway for the existing terminal. But in the outer harbor, we're hoping that a new terminal gets built and not looking at that being a temporary facility like a tent.
The next question is on the Iowa and the Iowa move. Is that still in your plan somewhere and to move it down to the old fisherman's slip?
Yes, it was a priority from the last engagement process that we went through with the community back in 2019, and that in 2020 ended up being one of the top priorities that came out from the neighborhood councils and from the chambers of commerce. So we do expect that to be on top of the list, one of the top projects that we'll be pursuing as soon as the PIP gets not the extension or the implementation long-term gets worked out in our longer-term budget process.
Have you assigned somebody at the port to kind of head that project up?
The Iowa project itself?
Yeah.
Well, there's structural engineers that have been working on it for several years as far as updating concepts and updating the plan to put in berthing elements that are necessary to allow it to rest in the SP slip. So there are engineering staff that have been looking at that for some time.
Is that coming under your direction?
Well, generally the project it's a waterfront project, yeah, but it's engineering project that has to be designed. But I mean, it's one of our projects that we're managing through the Waterfront Commercial Real Estate Division.
You probably understand where I'm getting at, because I'm very familiar with the front burner and back burner concepts when employees have a job to do. So I'm just want to see if this is a front burner kind of project, or is it back of a whole bunch of other stuff?
No, I think it's one, like I said, it was one of the top priorities that came out of the vetting process that we went through with the community. On top of that, it's advantageous to move it off of the wharf that it's on for cruise terminal purposes. There's opportunities to expand the berthing at the inner harbor as well as the outer harbor. And so there's a couple of things that are pushing us in that direction. And the reality is that the Iowa where it exists today, behind a series of tall and small fences, it's not a great place to look through to see it, right? It's sort of sequestered from the community. It's not a great location parking wise either, because we have to block off parking just to save it for people, and they have to go into that facility that is a little bit cumbersome to park in as it is. So there's a bunch of things that are pulling away from it that really need to be rectified, and the best way to do that is to move it into a location that is purely built for retail, dining, entertainment type uses, where it would fit much better and I think augment the existing West Harbor development.
One of the things that you're going to see in the letter that is coming from the Northwest, there's a couple of things. One is that there's basically two things that you're getting ready to present to the board. One is the amended plan, and also the list of projects. One of the comments that we made in that letter was that the list of projects doesn't include any discussion or information for the board's benefit on what the community included in their desired list and their priorities list. So, maybe we consider that and let the board know what other projects were considered and rejected, or, something, so that they have a better idea of what the community wanted and what the staff wanted. The other thing that's in there was a comparison of the amended plan and the plan, the current plan and the amended plan. There were lots of good things in the in the plan about consultation and providing input from the neighborhood councils pursuant to section 907 of the city charter. And hopefully you'll take a look at that too and see if you can make some adjustments there, Mike. Going back to comments or questions that I had one is up on the Wilmington side. If you can, I don't know if you can scroll back and put that slide up.
Yeah, Pat, if I could just respond to you real quick on what you already mentioned before I go to Wilmington is the presentation that we did make to the board previously did talk about the projects that were prioritized by the community groups. And so that was
Right.
there. We didn't flat out reject anything. If it was put out there, we thought about it. And depending on how many groups put it out there, we prioritized based on the input we received. And we can definitely make sure that we highlight that going forward. And then in relationship to the issue about making sure that we provide timely opportunity for input from the neighborhood councils, we always do that as a matter of course. We think about, even in the connectivity plan, think about these engagement meetings to make sure that there's time for community input through the neighborhood councils, so that the engagement meetings are set up so that there's enough time in between where the meetings are happening, the crux of them, which is in this next 30 days, and the neighborhood council to have a chance to actually react to that at the second round of meetings further out. So we do definitely try to incorporate that, but I look forward to seeing the specific language that you mentioned. And I will share this again. And hold on one second. So you wanted me to go to
That one, go back one. Oh, we can, yeah, that one. Actually, that one and the next one that showed the bridge. The bridge looks like it's a pedestrian bridge. Are you going to connect?
It is a pedestrian bridge. This is
next to Avalon. Go ahead.
Yeah, this is a pedestrian bridge. It was always intended to be a pedestrian bridge. The waterfront is connected through Avalon, but as you know, Avalon may close in the future depending on rail volumes, and Freeze will close as well for the redevelopment of the DWP power plant there. And so there's an existing grade separation that is west of this location that can bring people in and out. We're also looking at a secondary pathway to get out of the waterfront and into the waterfront for industrial users that are on the east side of the Wilmington waterfront. So that's another plan that's being looked at, both a short-term plan to make sure that there is a secondary access point out, and a longer-term plan to do something else more significant, maybe another grade separation in the future. But for vehicular access, the existing grade separation will be how people get in and out of that once those streets are closed.
All right, and then could go to the slide that shows the aerial view of the site. That one right there. What is the swap property that the port has that you're negotiating with DWP to swap for this tank parcel?
The main swap property is the property that the Beacons building is on, if you're familiar with that.
I am.
Yeah, so that's that whole block is the property.
I'm gonna give you something really esoteric, Michael. The tideland line in that area is along the street there where the rail cars are.
Mm-hmm.
But it's an arbitrary line decided on between, basically by the city, and it's not a real tideland line. Have your lawyers looked at where the possibility is that whole parcel where the DWP is really tidelands?
And so yeah, so I understand what you're saying, that's where the tidelands is, and that's where the line was anyways, which there may or may not be a reason for that. But what is the point of looking at that? That's DWP property, they own it. So
well, they if it's tidelands, then they don't really own it, Mike. That's the point.
Yeah, perfecting title on an issue like that, I could probably spend the rest of my career in another one on it. Just to be blunt, we've tried to negotiate with DWP. I personally have been negotiating with them, and maybe this is a reflection of my inabilities, but I've personally been negotiating with them since 2007 on that deal. So it's been hard enough for us to get one tank down. We really wanted two tanks. As you know, the original plan was to have both tanks down. So trying to get them to transfer that to us and explaining why it's tidelands, that would be a whole nother legal lift that may be good exercise, but I'm not sure that we have the resources to deal with that at this point. We're trying to get as much as we can out of them, and it's really been a struggle to get to where we are today, but I do appreciate the input.
Well, mention to them that some loudmouth jackass in the community has raised the tidelands issue. Maybe loosen them up a little bit. Hey,
Maybe.
You have another question. If somebody else has their hand up, Tom, take them out. I'll think of what it was. It was an important one I wanted to ask Mike about. Oh, I remember what it was. Phillips 66 is coming out with an NOP in the next couple of days. And I was a little surprised by that. Have they changed their project description between what was described in the MND and what's going to be described in the NOP?
I'm not close to the differences. I don't believe so. I believe it is the same project, and that we're just going through the EIR process on that project. So I don't know that it has changed significantly. I think that they're looking at doing the same general project, which is to basically make modems improvements at their facility and needing a long-term lease to enable that process.
Are they looking at the pollution issues on the contamination issues on the entire property?
What do you mean, are they looking at that?
Is this being handled out of the environmental division or?
Well, the
under,
environmental
20
division, they run they're responsible for the consultants that write those documents. So yes, and it is our consultant that's writing that EIR and that NOP. There's existing contamination on the facility. I think the port is in litigation over contamination that exists in a sliver on that is in the middle of the two sides of that terminal. At the terminals, yeah. So the ports, it has been in litigation on that for several years. And so that's existing contamination. Phillips has its own existing contamination. There's cross-contamination between the two on the properties. And so that's all part of the existing landscape that's out there.
Is there anyone else on, just since Pat gave the opening, anyone else? And now Gwen's been recognized, so she's got her hand up. Is there anyone other than Gwen or Pat who hasn't asked a question that wanted to? Anybody from the community? Okay, just want to give people a chance then. Gwen, I think that's a new hand, so go ahead.
It is a new hand. So,
Gwen, and then we can go back to Pat if he's got a few more, but go ahead, Gwen.
well, Pat, I'm glad you just dropped that keyword tidal lands. Something that you might want to be aware of, Mike, this is something that's kind of been on my radar for a very long time. So there's been a recently approved state act to amend several the funding for the Rivers and Mountains Conservancy, which includes funding now for down south for the San Gabriel Rivers, Catalina, and funding for the waterways to incorporate the Rivers and Mountains Conservancy restoration of the Los Angeles River and those kind of things, the renaturalization. Now it's finally been recognized that these tidal lands in the very southern portion of these waterways, that would be the Dominguez Channel, the Los Angeles River, and a few other waterways, are now going to be recognized to have funding. And I only see this as an enhancement for some of the connectivity plans for these areas. But of course, historically, there are these files called the T files, which had shown historically over 500 years the removal of tidal lands all through California. And of course, this area had lost a lot of mud flats and things like that. But now Wilmington area has a lot of channels, cemented channels that are part of these waterways that move into the port. I don't know. I just want you to have that on the radar, that this funding has been made available, or it's been approved. And there could be more funding sources for restoration of wetlands, at least as an educational and enhancement point for that could be in combination with Alta Sea, and some of the parkways, and to get marine birds, possibly get locations where there could be some restored marshlands or wetlands or mudflats of some sort. So I just want you to be aware of that. And that was going to be one of the things I wanted to mention. That's a fairly new update.
I appreciate that. And we definitely don't take it lightly when there is a variety of sources of funding, and spend a lot of time internally on that, whether it's for open space, whether it's for new transit projects, whether it's for restoration of environmentally sensitive areas as well. So, and our partners do the same, and Alta Sea has availed themselves of various funding sources through the state in areas that you did highlight. And I know the Iowa has as well, and received a parks grant to build that open space adjacent to their facility as well. So we definitely appreciate the information, and we continue to follow up on all funding sources that are applicable to port property.
Tom, I noticed that Sergio Carrillo and Augie Bezmolinovich are in the.
Oh, I've seen Sergio was there for a while, but welcome, Augie. And Mike's done a good job. So I know you had another meeting that conflicts, but it's great to see you here. I can move you over to the panelists if you want us to see you. Maybe you don't, no pressure.
Nice to be seen.
Is that a deep sea diving suit?
It's cold. I got my hoodie on. Yeah, keep my bald head warm. Just got back from Central Neighborhood Council.
Got back or escaped, which is.
What were the hot topics there?
Oh, don't get me started.
All right. Well, I'll watch the tape.
Nothing to share?
I feel like hopefully, Mike, this is a good, productive conversation. You had very informative. We normally ask if you can share the slides. I don't know if that's needed for this meeting, but people can watch this on YouTube later. So thank you. And I did offer, I don't know if Sergio got the promote. If Sergio wanted to come over, I'll try again. Maybe could only do one at a time. All right, any other questions? Otherwise, I do know it's late, and you guys work a regular day, I imagine, 8 to 5. So I want to be sensitive towards your time and respectful of Augie's time. But I don't see any other questions, and we've gone for a good hour. So I think we'll move on to the agenda. Oh, Augie, go ahead.
Did Mike mention a groundbreaking ceremony for the Front Street beautification project?
Did not.
No.
Okay, so our Front Street beautification project, we 9th at 3 p.m. It will be by the Little Fountain on Harbor and Swinford, just a little north of our big fountain there. So it's close to the bridge there. So once again, Thursday, March 9th, 3 p.m. groundbreaking ceremony for the Front Street beautification project.
Okay, it doesn't compete with first Thursday, so that's the second Thursday, 3 o'clock. All right, excellent. Thank you for that announcement. All right. Well, then let's keep on moving. I don't think there's an update from our joint environmental sustainability committee. It is something I'm going to try to explore as a joint port committee meeting. So we could talk to with the other groups, but I don't have anything to report from that environmental sustainability committee meeting with Central and Coastal. And I've got nothing new I can offer from the Port Neighborhood Council and Chamber Presidents meeting, but you did hear that's how our voices had been heard or not heard. I suppose it depends if somebody from this committee attends those meetings. So fortunately, the current president's been inviting me to those meetings. I've sometimes been their only attendee at those meetings, but I faithfully gone to all those and, normally bring an update back. We did even better today, having two folks share the same types of slides that I've been putting in our packets for this meeting to keep you updated, and we'll continue to do so. And do have a request in, and have talked to our President Ray that if I'm unable to attend, that we have members of this committee also willing to make sure we have that representation from our Northwest San Pedro Port Environment and Sustainability Committee. The next thing would be, anybody have any legislation or meetings with government officials, departments? I guess I did share earlier about our event where we had Congresswoman Maxine Waters and Nanette Barragon on the environmental topic of the safety of our refineries. It does affect one in Wilmington and affects one in Torrance. That was my quick update. Anybody else? I know, Gwen, you sometimes are watching different laws or rules. Any updates here?
No, but I am anxious to find out how the excuse me, forget the resolution regarding all new oil drilling and refineries in the Los Angeles area, and the shutdown that should commence in 20 years. I'm interested in how that will impact the harbor area.
Okay, so we'll watch that. Mary, thank you for attending. Just wanted to make sure, did you have anything in this area, any things you're looking at, or did I skip over something you wanted to comment on?
No, but this is the first time I've seen an update of the waterfront. So of course, it's very exciting for the community and water development. I just hope there's going to be more maybe not-for-profit groups, because LA Port is .org, not .com. So I'm just hoping that they can do some activities ongoing for the communities that will be funded by others. So for outreach and so forth, not just that everything has to be paid and commercialized. Thank you.
Thank you. I'm trying to think if you wanted to have a quick response to that, Mike or Augie. I know you do a lot with the Boys and Girls Club. You'll be able to more quickly talk about some of the nonprofits that have been supported.
Yeah, thank you. And thank you for the comment, Mary. We do support heavily the Boys and Girls Club, LA Maritime Institute, the Cabrillo Aquarium, the Maritime Museum, and Alta Sea. Those are all organizations that are completely sourced and resourced through the port. The aquarium, for example, the port pays about $7 to $8 million a year to operate the aquarium, and we pay Rec and Parks to operate the aquarium on our behalf. And so we do put a lot of money into facilities that are free for use, and that are free to the community and that are intended to engage the community on different levels. Alta Sea is a big example of that. Alta Sea, if they do their job, which is to engage with the community, create jobs and programming and educational opportunities, they basically do not pay rent. And that's the port basically funding that operation through rent abatement that allows them to continually reach out and engage the community on a very high level. On top of that, the port is investing about $40 million into Alta Sea as a standalone that's outside the public access investment plan. So we do put quite a bit of money into various nonprofit organizations to make sure that the waterfront is open and inviting to community members that either don't want to patronize profit-based organizations, or that feel they need a certain to meet a certain desire on the waterfront. So we're hoping to meet the needs of everybody that wants to come visit the waterfront.
Excellent. Well, that was good question. Great detail. And hopefully this speaks to why we like having folks come, from the port every so often. So I'll get to know and hear directly from you.
Thank you.
All right, well, we'll move down. Gwen, you've already hinted at this at the beginning, the public comment, but I did specifically agendize the event you announced has been canceled, it sounds like, but I'll let you officially report on Spring Emergency Prep Wildfest, EcoFest 2023.
We're revisiting it for the fall. But in the meantime, I'm hoping that members of this committee might help with, I'm trying to arrange for our own Northwest San Pedro Neighborhood Council pop-up to be at the
This is so good
April.
without
eighth.
fat ass.
Sorry, Pat,
in the meeting.
I think you're still on
So good
volume.
without fat ass in the meeting.
Pat, I think you're on, still on volume. That April 8th, the neighborhood council pop-up to participate in that and have an outreach component on April 8th. So I'm hoping that possibly somebody on this committee might be interested in doing that with me.
Yeah, do we have any volunteers to help?
Keep that in mind. We can discuss it again in March.
Okay. And if you're not ready now, Pat or Mary, anybody watching later, please contact Gwen. Okay, well, thank you. And given that it's been a pretty long night, it's Mardi Gras, so you might have places to go or, fun alcoholic drinks, to drink. We have no motion, so we can skip through number 10. There's no motions in this, so we can't move on those. And we've kind of gone through our priorities and projects. One of ours was having you with us today, Mike. So thank you for making the time to give us that update. So I think we're at the point of the agenda where I'll just entertain somebody's motion to adjourn.
So
Yeah.
moved.
And something that's non-debatable, right? We will call this meeting adjourned. I'll stop the recording and thank those who watch later, and thank each of you for being here this evening.
Thank you, Mike.